Shits and Giggles, embarrassing stories and personal growth. Hello and welcome again to another episode of Shits and Giggles. I am your host, Jackie Zimmerman, long-term IBD patient, someone who has had lots of shits and giggles along the way. And if you're new to the show, the goal here is we're going to share probably some embarrassing stories, but with the goal of showing you that you're not alone if you are somebody living with IBD where these things happen to you. Also, that you can survive the embarrassment. It is not enough to actually kill you, despite how it might feel at the time. My guest today is Dani, and I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Dani, and I am 24, and I live in Sydney, Australia. I've grown up here, so I've been here my whole life. I started out as a dancer from when I was pretty much since when I could walk. I was dancing. I had a very healthy lifestyle. I was really into my school, and that was pretty much my life every single day. Like if I wasn't at school, I was at dancing. So very, very healthy, and eating all the good foods, drinking a lot of water just to keep up with all the exercise I was doing. And then one day, out of absolutely nowhere, I started getting really bad symptoms, and I was going to the toilet constantly. I couldn't stop vomiting. I was losing so much weight, and it was very, very scary considering I was already quite thin for my age. And my mum sent me to the hospital and was like, what's going on with her? They actually sent me home 3 times with a bug, like a stomach infection. Oh, I know. And my mum just kept taking me back. Like she'd take me home and go, okay, maybe we need to go somewhere else. Like, what's the plan? What are we going to do? And then she eventually just walked me straight back into the children's hospital and said, we're not leaving until you admit her and run some further tests. And they were kind of like, oh, this crazy mom.
This
like,
lady.
Here she comes again. So that was, I remember all of this quite vividly, but pretty much they did admit me into hospital. They did a colonoscopy, endoscopy, you name it, everything. And I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease pretty much the same day. I remember that like it was yesterday. It was very scary. So that was back in 2009. And from there, I didn't really know what was going on. I just knew that I was sick and that I couldn't go to school and I couldn't see my friends, basically. That was all I was thinking about at the time. I spent a good few years in and out of hospital at that time. Every single trial and medication they put me on, it just would not work. So I spent a good chunk of that not eating anything. They believed in the clear fluid diet or the no food at all diet, feed you through a tube diet. So that was horrible. I mean, all I can take from that is that every single thing I eat these days, I appreciate, which is great. So I do have a very good appreciation for food now. Don't really let a lot go to waste anymore. But back then it was pretty horrible being in hospital. I mean, I have been lucky enough to avoid surgery. So I'm 24 now and I still have avoided surgery, which is pretty big. And I am very grateful for that. I've been very, very close. I mean, when I say close, I was booked in to have the surgery 2 days away. And then my dad actually found this other professor in Sydney who was apparently doing crazy things that not the normal hospital system was doing. And he thought, you know what, before we do this, let's just give it a try. So he took me to this professor, and I think I was 12 or 13 at the time. And the professor's receptionist was like, no, she needs to be 14. We can't let her in here. And he's like, look at her. She is skin and bones. We just took her out of the hospital for a day. Like I still had tubes in my arm. Like it was a mess. And the receptionist was like, okay, you know what? We'll let her in. We'll let her, as soon as he sees her, he'll want to see her. So I was very lucky with that. He took me under his wing. He tried me on all of these crazy antibiotics and they worked. And I couldn't believe it. It's called the anti-MAP therapy, by the way. It worked for me for years. like years and years and years and years until it didn't work again. Back in hospital about 4 years ago. It was actually really sad because I'd been so good for so long. I got back into school, I had my friends again, and think life was going really well. And then it kind of went all over again. In and out of hospital, trying all these new treatments that had came out at the time. Nothing was working until Solara. And then I started doing the injections every 8 weeks, and I've been in remission. I can't tell you the exact time frame, but it's about, I think I'm coming up on 2 years straight now. So
yeah,
yeah,
that's excellent.
Yeah,
I
that's pretty much
too
my time.
was diagnosed in 2009, but I was much older than you were in 2009. And I also went down the path of surgery like immediately. Like I was diagnosed in
Okay.
less than a year later. I had my first surgery. So
Yeah.
that's fantastic though that you've been able to avoid it. I mean,
Yeah,
avoiding it implies it's going to happen, but you know what I mean, that like you found
I
treatments
know.
that are successful, and I don't want
That
people to
kept
like
me going.
think that means, you know, well someday, because you know not everybody
Yeah.
has surgery, but
I know it's always going to be an option down the track. If things aren't to go well for me, I know it's always going to be there, but I've just been able to, just avoid
that's
it every
awesome.
time. Yeah, I'm very grateful for that.
Well, I assume that although your treatments have worked, there may have been a time or two, or maybe there was a moment or two that was not as wonderful, maybe embarrassing,
Glamorous?
shall we say?
Yes, certainly. Oh my goodness, I could not even before this, I was writing out a list on my phone thinking, what story am I going to go with today? There's too many. But one does spring to mind, and it actually happened in America. So I was on a family holiday, and so I was with my mum, my dad, and my sister, and they decided to do the Runyon Canyon walk. So
Oh
I
boy.
was not feeling too great that day. I'd had a bit too much In-N-Out burger that week. I was in remission, but yeah, the In-N-Out burger, we don't have that over here. I know
The
we don't really have it
American
in other
diet
states.
did you in.
Yeah, it really was not agreeing with me. So anyway, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to miss out on this walk. I'm just going to go for it and see how I go. So we parked at the bottom, started walking up the hill. I can't remember how long the walk is, but for memory, it was quite a trek. And we got halfway up the hill, and all of a sudden, my bowel had an immediate wave of pain, and I thought, oh no, there is not going to be any bathroom up here, like we're on a mountain. So the first thing I thought of was, where is there the closest bush? Like I'm looking around thinking, where is the closest bush? I need to make a dash. Nowhere. We're on this like massive hill, and there's people walking by, like, doing their active Saturday morning walk. And I was just like, okay, what am I going to do right now? So I sent my mum up the hill to like the tallest point where I could still see her. I sent my dad down the hill to the point that I could see him. And I said, tell people to just wait if they come. So
This is like when people stop other people to take a photo and you're like, this is so annoying, except way more intense than a photo.
Exactly. And my sister's just standing there. She was trying not to laugh, but she knew it was traumatic for me in the moment. I just, did my business right there. I had a beautiful view. Like that's all I can remember. It was a stunning view. But I just, did my business, pulled out my pants, and mum and dad came back over and they were like, are you okay? And I was like, surprisingly, yes, everything was fine. Nobody saw me. I got away with it very, very well. And yeah, I just went on with my walk. I didn't even, they were like, do you want to just go and try it another day? I was like, no, we're already halfway up. Let's just continue. So I
have to ask, what'd you do about toilet paper?
Well, as I said, I was in remission. So it wasn't I don't know. I know everybody's different, but it wasn't the runny, you need toilet paper kind of situation. So I actually got off without anything. And no, I didn't use a leaf because that would have been
It's awful. It's not
yeah,
a good,
very,
why do we
very
all
bad.
think this is a good solution? It's a terrible solution.
I know. I would rather just not use anything at all than use a leaf. So yeah, no, that was okay. Went on with my walk, made it to the top, went all the way back down, and now we laugh about it a lot more than you would think. It comes up a lot, and usually I'm the one to bring it up because it's just so funny to reflect on.
So I think it's been comforting, also kind of strange that of the conversations I've had, I have an equally similar conversation. Like everybody's been like, oh, I was, at a friend's house. I was doing this. I was in the middle of the woods. And I'm like, me too. So
Yeah.
all of us have such similar things. And I was hiking through Big Bend, which is a huge like desert park in Texas. And the person that I was with had booked us a camping site. And I knew I'd done a lot of camping, but I was like, camping is fine, right? There's a very clear bathroom, like modern facility, you have a tent, whatever. Well, we got there and it was not that. It was rustic, meaning here's a plot of land. There's no lights. There's no bathroom. There's no nothing. And I was just like, what did you do? And they were like, what? I was like, I just was so out of words. I just didn't know. I was like, I don't pant, like, what do you do in those moments? And we had to drive like 20 minutes to find a ranger station for our bathroom. And I was like, we're going to do this right before we go to sleep. And I'm just going to like pray that I could make it through the night. And I did. It was like not a problem. I probably ate like 4 bananas or something just to be like, let's put as much bulking as we can in here. But I definitely was really nervous about it. And then when we were hiking the next day, same thing in the morning, I would eat like bananas and peanut butter to do my best. I'd eat some Imodium because I was like, it's the desert, the literal desert. Like, well, it didn't work one day and I was in the literal desert and I had packed, like wet wipes are my lifeline. So I had tons of wet wipes, but I also was not given a lesson on how to relieve yourself in the wilderness. And I'm there with somebody and there's not really anybody else around, but I was like, I don't know. Nobody said, like dig a hole, like I just was like panicking because I was like, I'm in the desert. I don't know what to do. This has to happen like very soon.
Now.
I have a J pouch. Like, what am I going to do? And I can't explain why this is the choice that I made, but the choice that I made, picture with me, if you will, a cliff. Where, like a normal cliff and there's like a ledge below the cliff, but it's still a cliff. I chose to put my butt off the cliff and to like lean forward so I don't fall off the cliff as the place I chose to like do my business. In hindsight, digging a hole would have been a much smarter, safer. But your panic brain is like, I don't know.
What do I do?
Why did my panic brain not save me from leaning over a cliff? I don't know. But that's what I chose to do. I think your plan is a much better, safer, smarter plan of just like, let's make sure nobody's around. There was nobody around. I still chose the cliff. So this is a good example of what not to do. Choose your plan, not my plan.
Wow. Well, at least you've learned from it. You've learned from your experience.
Yes. Also, beautiful view, breathtaking view.
Again, yeah, I know. That's one thing that we get.
Yeah, I mean,
the normal view that most people get.
If you're going to go into the wilderness, at least appreciate what you've got while you're there.
Exactly. That's right. Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, not my proudest moment, but I made it. So I guess that counts for something.
It does. I mean, that's all it is. If you make it and you make it out feeling like, wow, I've achieved something and nobody's seen me and I can just walk away and nothing happened.
Well, that's a win. I mean, to your point, like what happened to you and what happened to me, you're right. Like I was done and I was like, well, that was an experience. Can't wait to tell that to the internet one day. But I also
Yeah.
got up and left and carried on with the day. You know, like it wasn't like, I
Yeah.
can't believe that happened. This is so
Mm.
embarrassing. It was just like, this is part of the life. I had prepared the wet wipes because they go everywhere with me. You know, in case you ever need to shit off of a cliff, must have wet wipes. So,
Yeah.
you know, and it just was like I packed them up and then we kept on keeping on. And I think, you know, there are times in my IBD journey where that would have not have been the case, right? I would have, first of all, probably not shit off a cliff. I would have probably panicked enough to where I just ended up pooping in my pants and then panicking because I'm in the wilderness with nothing else. And then it's like, then it's the shame spiral. It's, you know, it's all of those like horrible, horrible negative feelings where a little bit of like innovation and a little bit of like preparing in advance. And it was like just another day after that.
Yeah, worked out for the best. That's
Right.
right. No, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, as my story, that time on the Runyon Canyon, it did work out very well for me. But as you've said, I've had a lot of experiences where I have had those negative feelings after it because it didn't go as well as planned and people had seen, or I just felt really crap for a day after or a couple of days after, even weeks after, thinking, oh my goodness, I've got so much anxiety. What if that happens again? I need to just know where all the bathrooms are. I'm not going to leave the house unless I know where they are. And it just, yeah, I've struggled a lot with anxiety with that type of thing due to my accidents that I've had in the past. So yeah, it has taken a lot of psychologist appointments to, you know, get me to where I am now. But yeah, I totally understand what you mean. Yeah, there is sometimes where you can have a great experience and then not some good ones. But again, I'm still at a place where all of them are very funny to me now, even the really bad days. So yeah, you do learn from them.
I also feel like in the times where it's possible, because it's not always possible, right? There are the moments, like we just said, where it's like, you can't do anything about it. It is what it is. But I feel like we all become very innovative in those moments.
Yeah.
When you have, you know, I feel like everybody turns into MacGyver. You just like find a thing and turn it into another thing. And you're just like, this is what it is now. I'm a genius for whatever I just came up with. And those are the really good rewarding times. And I think that, you know, if you're someone who can relate to these stories, or even the really, really bad ones where, you know, they didn't turn out so great. Sometimes I think you kind of have a choice on how you look at these. You can look at the ones where they turned out okay and be like, haha, that was a good time. Also, I'm funny. Everything is funny. Let's just think about it as funny. And look at it that way. You can also focus on those really awful stories and continue to feed your anxiety, which sometimes you can't help it, right? I have definitely fed my anxiety when I was really sick and these things were happening all the time. I was a panicker. I am a panicker, right? Like, I think this disease makes
we all are,
you
don't
a panicker, you know?
Yeah.
But when I think about, let's tell an embarrassing story, those aren't the ones I think about, not because they weren't embarrassing, but because I look at the ones where there was like a silver lining to them. Like there was something to learn from it. And there's a positive feeling on the other side of it. And I know that is, you're right. It took a lot of work, a lot of therapy, a lot of effort to get to the point where you can focus on the ones that aren't such a detriment, but it's not like you're erasing them from your memory, you know, like you're just choosing to look at different versions of something that happened.
That's right. Exactly right. Couldn't agree more. I mean, I think probably the worst one on my list was on a Sydney train at peak hour of the morning while I was on my way to school in my school skirt. That was definitely the very worst. Probably one of my very first accidents as well. So that was embarrassing. And that was the one that kind of set off my anxiety and put me into this whole headspace of, wow, I need to know where all these places are. I can't live my life without knowing where they are. And yeah, it was terrible. Again, I probably would bring it up and say, how funny is that? Can you believe that happened? But at the time I was like, this is the worst thing ever. I'm never going to come back from this. But definitely reflecting on it, I know I've definitely learned, and I've come a long way. That was years ago, but I've definitely come a long way since then. Yeah.
Well, and it's also worth thinking about too, like what your anxiety tells you as a result of those, right? Like if your anxiety is like, well, I can never leave the house again. If I do, I have to have a plan. I have to have a go bag. I have to have a change of clothes. I have like what your anxiety tells you about these experiences is not true. Like it's not true. And it's hard to really differentiate between what is your anxiety telling you and what is your brain planning, right? Like this is how we tackle this versus just don't tackle it. It's terrible. It's never leave the house. Everything's fine at home.
That's right.
And and I think there's practice in that. There's a lot of there's practice in how to train your brain to do that. There's practice in how to shut your anxiety down. There's practice in just living with IBD, knowing your body enough to know, like, I can make it. I will be okay when I get out there.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where sometimes I think like when people who are maybe new to this or who are really struggling will listen to these things and be like, yeah, not me. That's not what's happening to me. And I want to be like, but it will be, I promise. Like, it takes work. It's hard. It might not happen right away, but you'll get to a point where you can laugh, you can learn, you can leave your house without overthinking it. Like there is a time when it will be possible.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. It will be. And that has been a massive argument in my brain for many, many years. And, you know, the fact that my anxiety used to bring on a lot of my symptoms as well, even when I was in remission, that was a massive turning point for me, thinking, wow, Dani, you actually are making yourself sick. And, you know, this may not be your IBD. This is your anxiety telling your stomach and just up, down, and it's just getting to the point where you don't feel good and you're getting to the point where you need to go to the bathroom. And the amount of times in the past that I've run off to the bathroom in full of anxiety, sat down, nothing happened. Yeah. And I'm like, Dani, what are you doing? Like, this is all in your head. And that's my main focus on, no, Dani, keep those anxieties down. Once you get there, you're not even going to go anyway. If you need to go, you know. So it's just like it takes a lot of work. It sure does, like takes a lot of work. And once you get your mind in that really good mind frame, it's so good. It's really, really nice to not have to think like that all the time.
What do you think has been one of the most beneficial or helpful tips, tools, practices to help like shut that anxiety down?
The thing that has actually worked for me, my psychologist taught me this kind of thing. It's kind of like a little technique where most of my anxieties have been in the car. I'm not going to lie. I mean, if I'm not in the car, I'm usually somewhere where I can get to a bathroom. So if I'm in a car or on an airplane, not that that's happening much this year, but in the past I've been on a plane, and you know, when you're taking off or landing, you can't go to the toilet. So she's taught me this way of just seeing my anxieties, like if I'm sitting in a car and as the cars go by, just placing my anxieties and my thoughts on the cars and just let them go, and just really, really thinking about or bringing out all of those feelings and that sickness and everything that I've created in my head, putting it on a car and letting it pass by. Same on a plane, put it in the clouds, let it pass by. And at first I looked at her and I was like, is that really going to work? Are you serious? And she goes, listen to me, please, just give it a try. And I tried it the first time and I was like, oh, what is she talking about? Tried it the second time. I was like, actually, this has calmed me down. My waves of pain stopped. And then, you know, they'd come back again and they'd creep back in, but then I'd just keep practicing. And I could not believe it. I honestly couldn't believe how much just thinking in my own head, like without medication. I mean, I know medication is always there if I need to make that step, but just teaching myself to do it, it's just, I could not believe how much of an impact it's made on my life. It really has.
Those kind of techniques, I feel like most people, when you hear something like that, you do exactly what you did. You're like, okay, right. That's
Yeah.
totally not going to work. And it stops there for so many people where they just, it's not going to work and they don't try it. And
Mm,
I'm with you where I've had similar things and I call them like the woo woo. I'm like, yeah, very like woo woo. It's,
mm,
hippy dippy thought processes. Yeah, right. And
yeah.
but like there's science that backs this stuff up that shows that it works. And it's something that I strongly encourage people to do. I've never heard like your version, but I love that of just like letting it, go by you. And
Yeah.
I would encourage people to try it. And it might not work for everybody. I'm not saying this is like a cure all, fix all for anxiety and you're going to be
Yeah.
great. But I think that it's something that does work once you let yourself lean into how awkward it feels and how stupid
Yeah.
it feels. In the beginning, you're like,
Mm,
this feels dumb. This feels, I
yeah.
feel ridiculous. But
Mm,
once you can get over that hump, I think there's a lot of room for these things to be
yeah.
very effective if you just like get over what you're doing and just do the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you get yourself into that mind frame where you can actually train your brain to act a certain way to help your issue. I mean, I know like my anxiety has completely been made up since I was diagnosed. Before then, I mean, I know I was very young, but I didn't have a care in the world about anything. So living with anxiety has just opened a lot of doors for me. And I think I kind of just ignored it for a lot of the time because, I thought, no, my IBD is important. That's the main focus. I need to get on top of that. And I just kind of pushed the anxiety away, like, no, that's not there. That's not a thing. And it's actually only been in the last maybe 3 years that I've thought, you know what, I'm going to give this psychology thing a proper go. I'm sick of feeling anxious every time I go out, even though I haven't really admitted it to myself before. I think I am. I think I do have anxiety and I need to get it looked into properly. And I'm very, very grateful that I did because it has really, really calmed me down. And I know, and like, I'm not saying that I don't get anxious anymore. I do. I honestly do, but I just know how to control it now. And I can definitely go do more things than I could because I feel safe within my bowel that I'm not going to have an accident or not be able to find somewhere or be rushing around and ruining my whole day because I'm thinking about where's the toilet. So yeah, definitely I could not recommend anymore actually giving psychology a go because it is, yeah, it's really changed my life.
Well, it also helps you to do like what you said, which is identify what is anxiety for you. Because I
Mm,
think, IBD is a catalyst for a lot of people's anxiety, right? A lot of us didn't have it
yeah,
and now we do. And in the beginning, you don't know that it's anxiety. You're just like,
yeah,
this is just who I am now, right? I just really am nervous
yeah,
about everything all the time and I overthink things all the time. And
mm,
to me, it took a lot of therapy and a lot of, inner work, a lot of obsessively reading articles about stuff
yeah,
before I was able to be like, oh, that's anxiety. And I'm still
yeah,
learning about the way that anxiety manifests in me because
mm,
it looks differently. It can be anger, it can be fear, it can be, all kinds of stuff, right? Like literally
yeah,
so many different things. And I think that it's worth identifying what it looks like in you as a step to finding a way to help manage it.
yeah. That's right. Try and control it, and everybody's going to be different. Yeah, as you said, you can be angry, you can be sad, you can just actually look very genuinely worried and
Yeah.
concerned. But I think I've been all of the above, to be honest. But yeah, just learning and actually ticking over to that point where you're like, wow, I've actually calmed myself down and I did it all on my own. It's very rewarding.
Yeah.
It was very exciting the first time that I thought, wow, I've actually been able to control the pain in my stomach and my bowel with my head. Like it's
You're a superhero.
incredible. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's
Uh,
great.
Dani, it's been such a joy talking to you and sharing your stories and you've made so many good points about anxiety. I would like you to tell us where we can find you online if we want to learn more about you or follow you or be friends with you or how do we do that?
Well, I'm on Instagram, and that's Dani with one N Ross _. So that's where I chat to a lot of people. I don't post a lot of content on there about my Crohn's, but I have in the past, and I talk to so many people with IBD still. Like, I've become quite good friends with a lot of people because I did used to share a lot of my story on Instagram, and I've stayed in touch. But now my main place where I speak to people is the colonqueen.com. So it's a blog that I started earlier this year in COVID when I was in isolation, and I was like, what am I doing? So yeah, the colonqueen.com is, that's the main place where I share everything with my bowel disease. Yeah.
Lovely. So go check Dani out, be friends with her, follow her stuff, read her stuff. Thank you again for joining me. Thank you for listening again, and we will see you next time.
Bye.